Hello bunnies and welcome back all to Golden Bunny, a cozy space to talk about books. Today we are doing one for the weird litfic lovers, the weirdos. This includes myself. I absolutely love this weird subgenre. I thought it'd be useful to provide context as to what I describe as the weird subgenre, so then you can kind of understand my recommendations and why I recommended these books. So for me, I would say that the weird subgenre has gained traction in recent years and become more popular. And I, for one, am a huge fan. Describe the weird litfic subgenre is that it's based in litfic, but there's something off about it. There's something going on underneath the surface that you can't quite put your finger on. Maybe that is an emphasis on a certain emotion to the extreme, to the max, or maybe it's just a metaphor for something, but it's very extreme and it's very in your face about it. So I think that's what I probably describe it as, and it's kind of like out of the norms of reality, how you would normally interact with something, how you normally act for something or respond with something is what I classify in the weird litfic genre. So it's kind of that thing of extremities, but also that thing of other world and something going on that you just can't quite put your finger on. So with that out the way and without further ado, let me present to you some of my weird litfic recommendations. Starting off with A Touch of Jen, in which is my most recent read, I think, from this subgenre. The themes that I have written down here are weird litfic, obviously about external forces and other lives, and lots of plot twists woven in, deep obsession and addiction to becoming someone else and getting involved in their identity, love and exploration on relationship, gruesome scenes and unexpected endings, and also it dragged on a lot in the middle. I do want to say that I know I'm recommending these books and I'm kind of bashing it a bit by saying that, but I just want to be honest with these recommendations because, again, someone might love the fact that it's dragging on and it's kind of building up to be this big thing, whereas others might not like that and want a quick, fast read. So I thought it was useful to come at this from all angles. But yeah, this one was so interesting in the way that it deep dived into obsession and just absolute feral addiction to becoming someone else. I don't want to say too much in my descriptions of these recommendations because I feel like that's what holds the gold dust of a weird litfic book recommendation, is the fact that you just don't know what you're walking into and everything is just like, what is going on? So yeah, I think I'm just going to stick to the themes, and then perhaps if you're intrigued more you can figure out more yourself, but if not then you could just go based on that and have a wild ride. So moving on to the next recommendation is She's Always Hungry, and which is a short story collection. And now this has complex characters in obscure settings, hunger in all forms that you could possibly think of. It's definitely blurring the lines between reality and magical realism. And I'd also say that it does have grotesque elements woven in here too. One was really interesting because with it being a short story collection and no two stories being the same, I found it had such breadth and variety in its different tales and its different ways that, like I say, explored hunger and also the ways in which it got weird and the ways that it became obscure. And I really like that about this book. Some short stories I didn't like very much, others I loved. So I think that's one of my favorite parts about obviously a short story collection, especially in this subgenre, is that is the potential to not like something but then really like something else. So yes, I recommend that one if those themes sound interesting to you. Next up we have Big Swiss, in which I will caveat that this has so many trigger warnings. I've literally put it in caps and bold on my recommendations kind of script because it's so many trigger warnings, so definitely look that up. But the themes that I've noted down are trauma as a form of currency, sexual exploration, messed up, trauma filled, no life in them female character, therapy, multi formats, characters are so specific and all I found insufferable and also so bizarre, but yet grounded in reality. And I think that's one of my favorite things, is when something is really bizarre and blurring the lines between like what I would deem magical realism, but then also reality. And I find that such an interesting concept to read and an interesting plot device to dive into, because it's just so abnormal from everything else. So yeah, I definitely recommend looking up trigger warnings for this one because, like I say, there are so many. And we have Brutes, in which the themes in this one encapsulates is dark undertones, naive narrative, and collective nouns. So the kind of group of people in this refer to themselves as we, as them, as us. So they're kind of like making themselves into one person, but yet they are individuals and we hear from them individually too. Then we have multi-timeline flashing forward and the past, so you're getting this kind of shift of these naive narratives and whether they've actually developed and evolved going from young adults to adults. Then we have thriller elements and uneasiness definitely woven into this plot. Also, ending was a bit too ambiguous for me. The whole book feels quite hazy and full of beautiful words, but I'm not quite sure that there was a lot of character or plot development in this. But again, you might really like that, and you might just like there for the all vibes and no plot sort of thing and no character development, because I know that's also a big part of this kind of subgenre is some of the things are just genuinely there for the atmosphere of it, for the vibes of it, rather than the character or the plot development. Which again, I do quite like these reads, but sometimes I'm in a specific mood to have the character development and plot development. So I just thought it was useful to give you all kind of my thoughts on them all. We have Cursed Bread, in which this had obsession and feral addiction to somebody. And I again find this as such a popular plot device in these kind of books. Is just this absolute addiction and obsession with a particular other character, and whether either character's morals are good, because sometimes it's the person or our main character who has this addiction or obsession to someone else that is demonized, but sometimes it's the other character which they are addicted or obsessed with that it actually has the wrong moral compass to begin with. So again, find that a really interesting plot device. The other themes in which had mundanity and longing stuck in a small town situation, and something new and fresh comes into play. It has perspective, so used to living your life and you think you know everything, but you realize you know nothing. Also, you know where the plot is going in this one, or at least I did, but yet you can't do anything to stop it, and you're just kind of watching it play out. And I find that in itself is a really interesting concept to read about, because it didn't feel like you had spoiled yourself, and it didn't feel like the book was ruined because you just knew how it was going to play out. But yeah, it was almost morbid curiosity because you're just reading to see how these characters respond and react. Descent into madness and ambiguous ending. So those are the themes I'd use to describe Cast Bread, and yeah, I recommend it if any of these themes sound interesting to you. Then we have a book in which I find quite difficult to read, and it took a lot out of me in the sense of the first 50 pages, maybe even 100 pages. Um, were filled with weird or like obscure, intriguing prose, but the narrator, I just became bored, and I don't feel like it really redeemed itself. But I still want to recommend it because I feel like it is such an intriguing and unique concept that I've read, and I feel like somebody will definitely like it. So this is a hard copy. It's translated Dutch fiction. It has an obsession with the printer. The main character has an obsession with the printer, and it's kind of their descent into madness and a descent into feral obsession with the sprinter. It's an introverted and socially awkward narrator, stream of consciousness most definitely, and no plot or vibes, but not many vibes either. So I think these are the kind of things I'd use to describe this one, and I feel like I'm not selling it very well, but like I said, I feel like it could have definitely been great for me if I enjoyed those themes and enjoyed those things going into it, and I wanted to love it, but sadly it just didn't work for me. But hopefully it worked for you. So that's hard copy, and I recommend it if that sounds interesting to you. Four more recommendations to go. First of all, we have Rouge, in which had a skincare cult in it. Also underlying themes of obsession with beauty and destruction of self. Unhinged characters, fever dream, fairy tales, and grieving. This was really interesting to read about because it was kind of all about the self-care movement and beauty, and it very mirrored the beauty industry today and how it's deemed as self-care, and how skin has become this really big thing in society, and cleanliness and wanting to be pure, and all of the discussions around that, and how it then blurs the lines between being obscure and reality, etc. And I just thought it was a really interesting read. I found it really impactful, but yet still filled with weirdness and strange elements going on. So yeah, I recommend this one definitely. Then next up we have Patricia. I don't know how to say that. Patricia. That why is that so hard to say? Anyway, next up we have Patricia Wants to Cuddle. This had themes of being cult-like, a TV show. So it kind of had that reality TV show style element. And that's what the characters thought they were getting themselves into. It had mystery and an unhinged plot. I feel as though this whole element, it kind of just was insane. Like, everything was happening, and it did feel like you were watching a reality TV show gone wrong, yet people knew that it was supposed to go wrong, yet you were just seeing the characters unravel at the seams because they didn't anticipate this going wrong, and I just found that really an intriguing concept and fun to read about, and yeah, that's why I'd recommend it because it was just so felt so real and so connected to the world that we know, but yeah, it was just so obscure, and the whole entire plot and ending of it was just really gobsmacking to me and a bit strange and a bit weird, but still really, really fun. We're down to our final two recommendations. The first one is I Am a Fan. Now, this one had social media and obsession. It had society woven in here, of course, commentary piece rather than plot moving forward, toxic relationships, unknown and unnamed characters, and also a stream of consciousness writing style. This one was short but yet impactful and powerful, and I found it so interesting about the kind of like anonymity of it all, and also just the constant stream of consciousness and the discussion with social media and then obsession. I just thought it was just really resonating with me because of today's society and the like connection with social media, etc., etc. And yeah, I just found it really intriguing to kind of read this and see like the anonymity, the social media element, and then the obsession, and kind of take a step back and see whether that is our reality or whether it is just still weird lit fic and magical realism. But anyway, that's kind of like a different discussion, but I just thought it was really fun to read about, and I had so much fun while doing so. So I recommend it if those themes sound interesting to you. Then we have the last but not least recommendation, in which is self-care. This again had social media, but interestingly, it had the truth behind that girl, and it was kind of like the destruction of the whole theme of that girl, which is very big on social media at the moment. So it's kind of, if you don't know, that girl is denounced as the perfect person, the perfect female, doing all of the like great female things, and being fit, being healthy, being feminine, etc., etc., and kind of being society's ideal woman, I suppose, is maybe how you would categorize it. I'm not really into that side of the internet, so I'm not really 100% sure. But anyway, this is kind of what that book so spoke to me about, and it had modern feminism in here, chaotic storyline. It felt anxiety inducing, but what I liked the most about this book is it had an unresolved ending, and it felt like it could just loop back. I don't know if you know, but those like kind of reels or those TikToks which they start at a point and then they end, but then they just start again, and it's just kind of this like endless forever loop. That was how this book read and how this book felt, and that was really interesting to me because it was just such a unique way of telling the story, in which I found just fascinating and fun. So yeah, I highly recommend it if they seem sound interesting to you. So my friends, those are all of the book recommendations I have for the weirdest books for the strangest people. Today I had so much fun just putting this all together, thinking about all these weird books, because I just love, I am a sucker for a weird lit fic book. These are just kind of the books which I thought would intrigue a lot of different people, because I feel like it had a bit of variety in here. But like I say, let me know if you have any recommendations because I'm always, always, always on the hunt for more book recommendations, of course. Big thank you for watching, a big thank you for being here, and then I hope wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you have a wonderful day or night. Until next time, friends. Bye.